Hey, Tampa Bay, we're with you for another week here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show, like we are every Sunday at 10 right here on WFLA News. Excited because I get to talk to you about what is going to happen in the real estate market post-election. Look, we talked a lot about, our expectations for the real estate market after the election. Real estate isn't like the stock market. Look, we saw the stock market rise 3.5 points in one day after it was announced that Trump won the election, and real estate just is a lot more slow moving than that in terms of how it impacts values. Now, demand, it's really hard to say because you don't ever know, there's no easy way to measure demand between whether a Republican or a Democrat wins the election because you only get one choice, right? So right after the election, if demand bumps up, then everyone says, well, hey, it was because the Republican, Trump got elected, or the last time it was because Biden got elected. But in reality, a lot of that extra demand comes from the fact that the election is over. And now we get back to normality and people don't have that as like this fear-mongering thing holding over them. However, this year I felt a little bit more of a bump than I felt the last time in terms of demand, website traffic, calls into our office, people wanting to sell, people wanting to buy. There's no question there was some fence sitting from the election. But I also think we've elected, for the second time, a president that has made his wealth in real estate, is a real estate developer, has been a real estate broker, has multiple real estate entities in his background. Now, most of his wealth comes from his brand and his Truth Social media platform. However, he started and built it as a real estate guy. He is a real estate guy. His family is a real estate family. So I think there is a lot of hope and anticipation that some of the policies he enacted the last time, which led to some of the best real estate markets we've seen in a long time, will get put back into place, and we will start to see that again. It also could be a contributing factor, the hurricanes. We're now a little further past the hurricanes. More of our areas have been cleaned up and debris removed. People are starting to get those homes renovated. Our areas are looking less and less like a disaster zone. So you have demand opening back up from people that, may have simply been sitting on the fence because they didn't really want to buy into an area that looked like a disaster zone. So that contributes. Now, in reality, another thing that post-election ends up happening that I think will contribute to the success of our real estate market, whether that's people selling and moving because we need listings, or people moving into the market because we need buyers, you're going to continue to see moves in and out of our state because our state is a polarizing one. Let's face it, Trump won the election by 13 points. Okay, it was a landslide. Miami-Dade County went blue. Okay. So that's unheard of. That just doesn't happen. Or excuse me, Miami-Dade County is always blue. It went red. And so, that's unheard of. That just doesn't happen. So we've become this really, really red state. And what ends up happening from that is this is my 20th year in real estate, and I've never been in a real estate market where there were more politically motivated moves. So I'll give you an example. Call it, even 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. And obviously during that time frame, it's continued to become more political over the last several years. But going back to maybe halfway through my real estate career, I never heard the conversation of people saying, oh, I'm moving because of, the politics, either where I'm moving from or the politics of where I'm moving to. And the reality is, up until that time, Florida had been kind of we were one of those states that kind of went back and forth. There were years we were Democrat. There were years that we were Republican. We were pretty much a middle of the ground state. So we weren't so far right or so far left that it caused that motivation. We were pretty center. We were probably a battleground state, right? So once DeSantis was elected and then over time, we've become more and more conservative. And then obviously this election kind of really opened a lot of people's eyes. Trump went from winning Florida by 5 points to winning it by 13. So the context of that is people say, oh, well, all the people that live in Florida are becoming more Republican. And the reality is maybe there's a little bit of that, but a lot of the people that don't support the Republican Party or Democrat or far left have moved. Okay. And they've moved to areas that are, historically maybe a little bit more left, the Northeast or out West, right? And so what on the converse of that, we've had people that live in California, for example, and a lot of New York, a lot of the Northeast that didn't love how left those areas were becoming and moved to Florida because we're more conservative and more right. So the reality is that people in Florida aren't becoming more conservative. Our population is becoming more conservative because some of the liberal folks are leaving, and we're getting more of an influx of people that have more of a conservative mindset. So that causes moves both ways. That causes us to attract population, okay, as well as release population. So that is good and bad for our real estate market. It's good in that it creates transactions, especially in a market where transactions have been down. It's bad because it could potentially lead to population drops. Now, fortunately, as we've become more political, or not more political, but more right, the loss of population has been, far surpassed by the people wanting to move into our state. And so that continues to supply our demand, and we create transactions from the people that say, I'm going to sell and leave because I want to live somewhere else because it doesn't align with my belief system. So, ultimately it ends up probably being positive for our real estate market. Now, who knows how much of that continues? Who knows how long that continues? But the reality is that when I hear people say that, we're going to see a mass exodus of Florida, it's going to crush the real estate market. Now, the reality is we're going to probably continue to attract more people from other parts of the country than we lose. Because, again, even though we may get those political moves, we also get the people that move because we have no state income tax. We get the people that move because we're still more affordable. We're starting to lose some of that because of insurance and property taxes, but we're still more affordable than a lot of other places in our climate. While we had two really, really bad storms, the last 10 years have not been riddled in Tampa Bay with a lot of bad storms. And ultimately, there are enough consumers that say, they got those out of the way, so now we can move. So we still have a year-round sunshine. We don't have snow. We don't have ice. And that's attractive to people, and it's attractive to retirees. So while we'll get the politically motivated moves, we're always going to get the moves that we've always gotten, which is, people retiring and people wanting to, live in Florida. So hopefully that helps you understand kind of my take on what we're seeing, with the real estate market. And, just to kind of give you a background after 20 years, like I said, the first half of my real estate career, man, I never heard people moving here for politics. But as we've become more red and more right, you get more people that are either moving here or moving out. And I mean, I remember even back probably like 5 or 6 years ago, I started seeing more people from out west. We always got the Northeast because we're close, right? Like we're close, and a lot of New Yorkers vacation down here and end up loving it and end up moving here, right? But we really didn't get like California, for example. And recently, over the last few years, I see a lot more California moves. And people might say, we do, Andrew, you live in South Tampa. And I'm not talking military moves, okay? Like I know how to differentiate those. Like we get plenty of people at PCS here from the West Coast to McDill Air Force Base and maybe have a California license plate. I'm talking about California license plates in the burbs and people that are not affiliated with the military that have moved here because they disagree with how far left California is. So again, our politics is always going to have an impact on our real estate market. And so far, it's been a relatively positive one. I think that continues for the next 4 years. And, I'm really hopeful and optimistic. And I felt a nice bump this week. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean prices are going to rise or transactions are going to increase because the storms and the pent-up demand from the storms could be contributing because all these things are kind of a perfect storm at once. But I did in my business this week as I talked to my 40 team members and my agents and my staff, I did feel like there was a pickup and there has been a renewed sense of positivity about our real estate market and our recovery. Now, a lot remains to be seen. Look, we still have to get through to an inauguration, and then we've got to see what kind of policies get enacted that could be pro real estate. However, the writing is on the wall that we'll see, some improvement and drops in interest rates. The Fed has already signaled continuing to drop interest rates. The market's already mostly priced that in, so don't expect huge moves from Fed rate drops. But when the Fed makes a move that is slightly more aggressive or less aggressive than is expected, then obviously you can have that. But the quarter point rate drop has been talked about forever. So, you kind of get the status quo with the quarter point rate drop, higher than a quarter point rate drop, and then obviously you see more of an impact on rates and a faster lowering of mortgage rates. But most mortgage rates have already factored in what happens with the Fed, unless the Fed goes more aggressive, which we have seen. So, the reality is that when you hear the Fed dropping rates, it's usually not the huge drop. It's not an equal translation to a drop in mortgage rates like people might suspect, but there's definitely a trend. It's definitely heading in the direction of lower interest rates. We expect that trend to continue. I believe 2025 will be a better real estate market than 2024. I believed that before the storms, so definitively I believe that now. September was brutal, truthfully, for our real estate market. So October stats haven't come out, and I can just tell you it was also pretty rough. So because you had that storm and it eliminated or pushed so many transactions, that's going to have an overall negative impact on our 2024 real estate year in the marketplace. I suspect 2025, my hope obviously is that we don't have as many impactful storms, and certainly not any that hit back to back. And I think that will ultimately lead us, in addition to all the economic things, to a much better real estate market in Tampa Bay in 2025. So again, when we aren't on air, make sure to follow us on all of our socials at The Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Hit us up at duncanduo.com for a free home value estimate. And you know what? If you've got a damaged house, if you're just tired of Florida, if you know what, the politics of Florida has you and you're just ready to go, just go to duncanduo.com. You can get your home value estimate. We'll reach out. You can get an instant cash offer on there as well. Again, at duncanduo.com. We'll be back continuing this conversation after a quick break here on WFLA News. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market, and I've got a featured property today. And it's interesting because we have a lot of clients that this storm has prompted people to say, you know what, I want to move a little further out. I want to be a little bit more in the country, and we're getting people moving here from other parts of the country. And let's just face it, the country, suburban, rural areas are much more likely to be conservative. Okay. So, you had this movement where the storm pulled people away from the coast, AKA our most populated areas, and is pushing them out to the rural and suburbs. Or you've got people that are buying second homes. You have people who have homes that have been damaged that are looking for something where they want to stay close, but they don't want to completely vacate Tampa Bay. Well, our featured property day is right for you then. 22 Whitewood Court in Homosassa. Been on the market a couple of weeks. This is a beautiful 3-bedroom, 4-bath, 3,500 square foot house. Multiple opportunities to turn this in with bonus rooms to turn this into more bedrooms if you need it. But an incredible new construction home in Homosassa that was completed in April 24. Serene 0.2 acre cul-de-sac lot, 3,500 square feet, peaceful conservation views, front and back, open floor plan, 16-foot island, stainless appliances, upgraded cabinetry and countertops. Just a really cool opportunity to have kind of the best of urban and rural and still not be too far of a commute from Tampa Bay. No observed damage from either hurricane. Again, tranquil area. Lots of new features, really high quality construction because of its, being up to new standards. Just a really, really beautiful home. Listed for $525. Again, 22 Whitewood Court in Homosassa. You can go to theduncanduo.com and check out our featured listings. You can also Google the address. Again, it is 22 Whitewood Court in Homosassa, Florida. So, talked in the first segment about what was happening in the real estate market and what what the presidency and what I expected to see and what I had already seen in the few days since he won the election. So if you missed that and you kind of want to know my take on how politics are affecting our real estate market here in Tampa Bay, you can always go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com, and search for The Duncan Duo. You'll find our channel. I think it's /The Duncan Duo or @The Duncan Duo. iHeartMedia has our podcast on it as well. You can go to iHeartMedia's podcast page and search for Duncan Duo, and you'll find it on there as well. But that's kind of my take on what I believe is happening in real estate. Next, I want to talk to a crowd of people that, again, hopefully our real estate market starts heading in a more positive direction. Rates drop and we start to see, equity increases again. We've gone through a couple-year period where values have really kind of flatlined and been soft and, kind of gone up and down, probably a little more down than up, especially with the storms. So we have a lot of consumers out there that are in a tough spot. They don't have equity. They've had a flooded out house. They have a high interest rate. And the economy's not been in the best situation, so maybe they've been put up into a tough spot, and some of the changes that are coming might end up helping, but maybe it's a little too late. So if you're one of those people, or someone, and they're underwater on their house, they owe more on it than it's worth, they're behind on their payments, they got flooded and don't have insurance and still owe a mortgage, there is something called a short sale, okay? And if you go to theduncanduo.com and message us if you need a short sale, you can call us too. 813-359-8990. Again, 813-359-8990. If you Google us, you can click through and call us from there as well. Just search for Duncan Duo. But if you're someone that's underwater on your house and you need to sell it, but you don't have the money to make up the difference in what you owe, you can do what's called a short sale. And a short sale allows you to sell the property and get the bank to accept less than what is owed. Because if the bank spends all the money to foreclose on your property, there's a good chance that by the time they end up owning the property, it's worth less, because there could be damage, because you could gut the house, because it could end up getting broken into by homeless people and all the appliances stolen, all kinds of reasons why banks do short sales. But it's a pretty common thing in a challenging real estate market. Now, we haven't had really much of a challenging real estate market for a long time, so there's a lot of real estate agents that don't know how to navigate a short sale. They don't know what they need to do differently to market the home. They don't know the steps of the process. So I want to let you know that we've done hundreds of short sales. I built my business during the Great Recession, specializing on helping clients avoid foreclosure so that they would have quicker credit recovery and a better opportunity to get the debt off of their balance sheet. So if you're thinking about doing a short sale, again, theduncanduo.com or 813-359-8990. If you know someone underwater on their house in one of these situations, like they flooded and didn't have flood insurance, they owe more on it than it's worth, they've lost a job, the economy's been rough, the value has dropped, and this is probably really a lot more relevant to someone that's either bought in the last year or two or refinanced in the last year or two. So if that is you, we would love to help you. We have the tools, the systems, the team, the right setup, and we've done tons of them. They're just starting to make a comeback. So if you need to do a short sale, we'd love the opportunity to help you. Or share this with someone you know that's in that same situation. Share our contact information. Tell your friends that we are the place that they need to contact if they need to do a short sale. Again, they can do that going to our website, searching Duncan Duo, and calling us. So hopefully that's helpful information for someone that's out there that wants to have better credit recovery and get a home sold when maybe they owe more on it than it's worth. So we'll be back continuing this conversation after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show, talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. I'm Andrew Duncan, the Duncan Duo team at LPT Realty, always here talking about what is going on in the Tampa Bay real estate market. And I want to talk to you next about this because it was pretty surprising to me to read this, and I want to go into some detail about it and also give people some advice out there. I think one of the obstacles that we have in our education system is that people don't get a lot of financial advice. I've worked really hard with my daughter to be the person that gives her financial advice because she's not getting it. She didn't get it in high school. She's not getting it in college. And I think a lot of young people come out unprepared for how to, how to better themselves financially, how to get ahead, how to become a homeowner, and kind of the pursuit of the American dream, because they get sucked into these weird directions. So the average age of first-time homebuyers in America, this is not a Florida statistic, the average age of first-time homebuyers is at an all-time high, 38 years old. Now, I could go on and on about how interest rates, the economy, some of the political choices, for a lot of things about what has caused that to bump. Okay, housing shortage. Okay, I could also talk about how builders post Great Recession really pulled back on building and reduced the amount of risk they had because they got stuck with so many homes in foreclosures and so many homes that didn't sell and so many value drops that they slowed their pace of building, and they slowed it so much and they went such a long period of time when they didn't build that they've never really been able to catch up the supplying of new construction homes with demand. So that is certainly a compelling thing that hopefully a pro-real estate president will figure out some ways to improve that, to reduce the down times of permitting, to provide incentives for builders to create more housing inventory, to create incentives for even potentially more affordable housing. The premise that you can just which, again, one of the promises of the Harris campaign was a $25,000 first-time homebuyer credit. Look, they've done that before. And while I certainly benefited from more transactions from it, the reality is that all it does is end up kicking the can down the road. It doesn't really solve any problems. It doesn't create inventory. We don't have an issue with demand per se. We really have an issue with affordable inventory, and so there needs to be some things put in place to encourage builders to build more of the product that first-time home buyers can afford, which is another reason why the home buying age has increased, first-time home buying age. The products that are out there available in the price ranges they want, when they look at it and say, oh, well, I want a house that's got all these smart features and is new and cool and fresh, and instead of buying the 2,000 square foot home, they end up going and getting an apartment because the home that they can afford doesn't have all those new fresh features like the apartment may. So it's caused this increase in age, but realistically, it's not having enough inventory. So, in lieu of solving that problem, which we can't do, I want to talk to the people out there that actually make bad financial decisions that cause themselves to get to a point where they're not able to buy a home at an earlier age. When I was growing up, I was always taught about the value of home equity and how you're paying down your mortgage while the value of your property historically over long periods of time, sometimes not over short periods of time, but over long periods of time goes up. And so you have this home and you buy it and then you pay it down and then you get a promotion, you get a job. But getting into the first home is one of those stretches, right? And I remember being taught, and told by, family members that fortunately had good advice for me and have my best interest in mind. And they said, hey, save your money. Don't spend money when you're young, but save it. Don't buy these things until you can afford them. But unfortunately, in society today, the reason why I think so many people don't buy homes at younger ages, I bought my first home in my early 20s, is because they get sucked into debt and they get sucked into buying these things that they can quote unquote afford, but it's causing them to not be able to afford other things. I'm a firm believer that home equity and owning a home is one of the key pillars to creating wealth and creating a life that you live by design, that's of your own design. So a lot of people get sucked into debt or going to Starbucks every day or buying a new expensive car, and then they can't afford a house. So what I would tell you is, early, if you have kids and they're in their teens or their 20s, or you're someone that happens to be listening to this show and you're in your 20s, save as much as you can. Don't try and keep up with your friends right now, but you'll pass them later on if you make those sacrifices now. Put money away so you can afford a house. You'll get so much further ahead and have such a greater chance at freedom and wealth by making better choices in your 20s, so that later on in life you can afford what you want, and you have equity, and you have money, and you can survive the ups and downs of the economy or losing a job because you've put things in the right place. But way too many people live paycheck to paycheck, not because, look, there are plenty of people that live paycheck to paycheck because the economy is tough. There are plenty of people that live paycheck to paycheck because inflation has risen, okay, dramatically. It's caused massive increases in things. But before inflation showed up, there were also plenty of people living paycheck to paycheck because they made really bad financial choices. They bought stuff they couldn't afford to impress people that they didn't even like. They tried to keep up with friends. They would go do dumb stuff. They'd live in the moment, and then they'd never get ahead. If you sacrifice for a few years, I believe there's still a great opportunity for plenty of people to become homeowners at younger ages. They've just got to have priorities in the right place and be coached and taught the right way. And they can, buy a home, gain equity, and eventually have a lot more freedom and money at their disposal. So there's no question that the high age of first-time homebuyers is contributed by a lot of factors. Some of those factors we can't control, but again, our youth, can make better choices. Our youth can get into home ownership earlier if they cut out some things. Of course, not everybody, but if we expect inflation to get under control, if we expect the economy to improve, and people start making better financial choices and get better financial coaching that they're not going to get in school, that they're going to have to get from a mentor or someone they know, then they're going to have a much greater chance at having the life that they really want to live. So hopefully that's helpful advice out there for anyone that's got a first-time homebuyer potential child, someone in their 20s, that they don't want them to wait until they're 38 to own a home. And make sure, again, to follow us on all of our socials and share some of these videos that we'll put out with your friends or family members that may be in that position, at The Duncan Duo. Again, at The Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Again, at The Duncan Duo. The state with 4 of America's hottest housing markets. This is kind of interesting because our state is certainly not one of those states with the super hot real estate market. We unfortunately got hit with back-to-back storms and a pretty polarizing election, because our state is pretty far right, very conservative now. So when I look at the list of the states with the hottest real estate market, Connecticut had the most metros on the list: Hartford, Worcester, New Haven, and Norwich, all in the top 20. The Constitution State's appeal lies in its quick access to major hubs like New York and Boston, excellent public schools, and stunning green spaces. Moving to the middle of the country, Ohio came in really strong. Akron, Canton, and Toledo, all in the top 20. Midwest markets appeal to today's buyers because of affordability. In light of today's higher interest rates, the Midwest is still very affordable, so a lot of people have gravitated to that. So the most improved, let's see, we saw, the most improved, a whopping 88 spots on the housing markets list in October to hit number 164 was New York, New Jersey. Now, this is interesting because you've long heard, and I think this is kind of a trailing thing, but you've heard people say, people are leaving New York for Florida. Of course, there are a lot of people leaving New York for Florida. There are tons. We get them all the time. But there are also people leaving other places for New York because it is a very polarizing political spot. It is pretty far left. So people that have that belief system, that live in areas that are maybe a little bit more conservative, politics has caused more moves throughout our country in the last few years than I've ever seen in my 20-year career. So there's no question that New York is now getting the benefit of some of the people saying, you know what, I don't want to live in a conservative area. I want to live in a liberal area. So they move to New York. And the ones that live in New York and say, hey, I'm tired of living here in woke land, I want to move to Freedom State, and they move to Florida. So that has been kind of interesting. So some spots that had some major drops, Tampa is one of them. Tampa had one of the furthest drops. And again, while we were a pandemic hotspot, a major thing that they did not factor into why our real estate market suffered so much is, we had back-to-back massive hurricanes. Okay, there's no question that back-to-back massive hurricanes are going to reduce transactions, hamper values, and make us less in demand. So, truthfully, we still have a very healthy real estate market, and I expect us to climb that list way back up again in 2025, again, because we are a polarizing real estate market. And again, the storms, we suspect, we've got a few more weeks of November, so you never know. I listen to my guy, Dennis Phillips, my favorite meteorologist, and Dennis has, pretty much said that even if we get a hurricane, it's not likely to be as strong because the water's cooled off and now we're not as warm. So nonetheless, if we don't have a major storm in November, the next chance for us to have a major storm doesn't happen for a long time. And I suspect that the first half of the year, we're going to see a lot of that demand come back. We're going to see our market improve. And ultimately, I think we will rise. But right now we're seeing homes last a little longer on the market. We're not seeing, we're not seeing as much, health in our market. I feel like it's starting to come back. This past week, post-election, I felt a nice surge. But it remains to be seen how we close out the end of the year and what the first and second quarters look like of next year. Obviously, those won't have as much hurricane impact. So we'll be back. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to keep talking. When we aren't on air, again, at The Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. If you want to sell your house, you want a quick cash offer, you want your home value estimate, or you want to sell your home traditional retail path, we have all the options for you. Just go to duncanduo.com, type in your address. You can do it on your phone. Again, that's duncanduo.com. If you want to text us, 813-359-8990. Again, you can text us anytime, 813-359-8990. We're going to be back wrapping up our show with the last segment after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. Look, if you voted this past week, congratulations. You took part in having a say in what happens in our country. But probably more importantly, you took advantage to vote on things that have an impact on our state. And, there were some controversial things. There were some controversial amendments on the ballot. And I'm not going to talk about those because I'm a real estate guy. So don't expect me to throw my opinion out on those. But what I do want to talk about is the steps that Florida took to limit tax hikes, property tax hikes. Because, again, our area has seen, up until the last couple of years, massive appreciation. Now we're seeing a little bit more of the depreciation. But the way property taxes work, they're in arrears. They go backwards. So they look at value. They look at home sales from the prior year. In a lot of those instances, because taxes are in arrears, it's not really assessing what today's value is. It's assessing what the value used to be. So it kind of trails. Those assessments trail what value is. However, in times when prices start to drop, people might say, "Oh, I'm being assessed at $300, but my home's only worth $280." And so that is one of the things that you see. So how Florida got around this? They put an amendment out there that was passed, and it was Amendment 5. And I want to talk about what this means because I had people reaching out to me and sending them their ballots and saying, like, "Andrew, what the hell is this? I don't understand what this means." So I want to explain what passed so that people understand how property taxes are going to be, possibly reduced in inflation times. So in Florida, homes are assessed for tax purposes at, an assessed value, which is, the market value from a year back minus homestead tax exemptions. Okay. Most owner-occupied primary residences qualify for two $25,000 tax exemptions, totaling a $50,000 that is exempt from property taxes. However, the second $25,000 isn't exempt from school taxes, but that I could do a whole show about that. So Amendment 5 allows one of those $25,000 exemptions to increase annually in pace with inflation. The adjustment would be made on January 1st each year and would be based on the prior year's percentage change in the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index, as long as the change was positive. So the homestead exemption applies uniformly to Florida homeowners and remains the same after moving from one home to another, preventing distortions in the market that arise when homeowners refuse to move to cling to a tax benefit. That is our portability. So we have portability. We've always had that. But this new thing is basically that second exemption can actually rise. So kind of interesting. And certainly one thing that our state can do to kind of help homeowners that have been, massively hit with inflation, that I think most listeners of this radio station post-election are now hopeful, myself included, that the new administration will take charge and make moves to tamper and reduce inflation. So I'm hopeful that happens. And I think, then this may not be as much of a point. It sure would have helped the last several years. We don't know how much it will help moving forward. I certainly think we're going to continue to see inflation. The hope is that Washington will get it under control with the new administration and some changes. But Florida did make moves to limit property tax hikes because our state, while has always been attractive to people from other parts of the country because of its affordability, it's lost some of that. Our property values have risen, which means our taxes have risen, and our insurance has massively risen. So, anything that the state can do to make things a little bit more affordable, especially when it has gotten, massive increases in property tax revenues at the county levels. The hope is that these slight moves can certainly help people that are financially struggling, maybe give them a little bit of relief. So anyway, we appreciate you tuning in when we aren't on air. All of our socials at the Duncan Duo. Last tip before we break, it is time for holiday decorations. This is the time of year that people decide to put up their Christmas trees and their menorahs. Basically everything holiday related comes out. If you're thinking about selling your home this holiday season, I want to strongly encourage you to tone down your decorations or not decorate at all. We see it happen every holiday season. Our real estate market is still very healthy during the holidays, and I think this year will probably be a little bit more so than normal because we've got pent-up demand from the storms and an election that just completed. So I think our holiday season will actually be pretty healthy, and I think a lot of consumers get distracted and with your stuff. If you've got the Clark Griswold, Christmas tree and the house is just completely smothered with holiday decorations, it will be hard for a buyer to look past that and see themselves living there, especially if they don't celebrate the holidays the same way you do. So if you're a homeowner thinking about selling your home this holiday season, I would encourage you to tone down your holiday decorations this year. And if you are thinking about selling, hit up DuncanDuo.com, get your free home value estimate, get an instant cash offer, get your home sold guaranteed. We'll reach out. You'll get an automated valuation, and we'll reach out, put personal touches on it, be able to make adjustments to your value so you can stay up to date on everything that's going on in your neighborhood. And again, you can do that at DuncanDuo.com. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, we're here every Sunday at 10 at the Duncan Duo on all of our socials, and have an awesome rest of your weekend, Tampa Bay.